Okay, so good day. I am Reina Claire Dizon presenting you the study non-toxic one-pot synthesis of carbon quantum dots from pomelo peel waste as a polychromatic fluorescent probe for acute and astute detection of copper, potassium, calcium, magnesium, and iron. I chose to pursue this study because heavy metal contamination in water poses a serious threat to ecosystems, human health, and economies. While heavy metals are essential in small amounts, excess levels can become toxic, like copper. It's used a lot in industry, especially mining and refining. The problem is when too much copper gets into the water, it becomes toxic. It can mess with aquatic life and can lower water quality. And it doesn't just stay near the source. Scientists have found copper pollution in lake sediments as far as 12 kilometers from mining areas. Then there's calcium and magnesium, which makes water hard. Hard water doesn't flow or clean as well and can clog up pipes and systems. More importantly, high levels of calcium in drinking water have been linked to kidney problems and urinary stones. One study in Taiwan even showed a higher death risk from kidney failure in areas with more calcium in the water. Next we have is potassium. People don't usually talk about this one much, but it matters. It mostly comes from fertilizers used in farming. When it runs off into rivers and lakes, it can affect the environment and agriculture in negative ways. Now, pomelo peels, which are usually thrown away as waste, can actually be put to good use. They serve as a sustainable, eco-friendly, and inexpensive source for producing carbon quantum dots, tiny light-emitting nanomaterials. TPDs made from pomelo peel are especially interesting because they show strong optical properties, meaning they can absorb and emit light in useful ways. This makes them highly valuable for a range of applications. Using pomelo peel not only adds value to waste product, but also supports a greener, low-cost approach to nanomaterial production. It's a great example of turning trash into technology. This growing problem has impacted people, the environment, and wildlife, making it crucial to find effective solutions. In response, I have launched a study to explore a sustainable approach to this issue. The study focused on using pomelo peels as a natural and eco-friendly source for producing carbon quantum dots through a non-toxic one-pot synthesis method. Beyond just creating CQDs, the research also evaluated their potential for quick and cost-effective detection of heavy metals, specifically copper, potassium, calcium, magnesium, and iron in water. This approach offers a promising step toward cleaner water and a healthier environment. Once again, this is Reina Claire presenting the study non-toxic one-pot synthesis of carbon quantum dots from pomelo peel waste as a polychromatic fluorescent probe for acute and astute detection of copper, potassium, calcium, magnesium, and iron. Next up we have is my methodology. It consisted of collection of materials like the collection of pomelo peels and the preparation alongside it. I also had a preparation of synthetic solution, synthesis of carbon quantum dots through a microwave-assisted synthesis, experimentation on the fluorescence yield difference of CQD through the UV light, and lastly, the statistical analysis, which used the NeoLog logger sensors. Now we move on to the results and discussion, which I will be first discussing the characterization of the CQD. First characterization I will be presenting is the UV-Vis spectrophotometer. These figures show that the carbon quantum dots glow the brightest when excited at a wavelength of 320 nanometer. This happens because that specific wavelength matches the energy needed to excite the electrons in the CQDs, making them light up more. Another reason for this strong glow is that the surface of the CQDs react well with the UVB light, which boosts how efficiently they emit light. Plus, the size and shape of the CQDs also play a role. Different sizes can affect how much light they give off. All these factors together explain why the CQDs showed their strongest fluorescence at 320 nanometer in the test. Next up, we have the Fourier transform infrared spectroscopy, or the FTIR. The first figure shows the FTIR analysis of raw pomelo peels, revealing key functional groups like the hydroxyl group, hydrocarbons, and alkene. These are common in natural compounds such as pectin, cellulose, and essential oils. The second figure presents the FTIR results after synthesis. Most functional groups are still present, but slight shifts in peak positions suggest chemical changes due to the synthesis process. Notably, the hydroxyl peak becomes stronger and the alkene peak at 638.39 cm disappears, indicating that some original compounds were altered or removed. Now we have next is the field emission scanning electron microscopy. These figures show FESM images of the CQDs. At 1 micrometer, the surface is rough and porous but uniform, indicating good stability and successful synthesis. The texture reflects typical carbon materials from biomass, with small clusters sticking together. At 100 nanometer, the porous surface provides a high area for oxygen-based functional groups to attach, supporting the FTIR findings as shown before and showing the CQD's reactive surface. Next, we have the energy dispersive X-ray spectroscopy or EDX results, which confirm the presence of oxygen on the CQD's surface. This also supports the FTIR findings of oxygen-rich functional groups. While FTIR identifies functional groups by their vibrations, EDX directly measures the elements present. Together, these results confirm that the CQDs have an oxygen-rich surface, mainly from groups like hydroxyl, carbonyl, and carboxyl. This oxygen content helps improve the CQD's reactivity and makes them more compatible with different solvents and biological systems. We also have up next is the transmission electron microscopy characterization. These are the figures of the TEM analysis, which was used to measure the size of the CQDs at 500 nanometer and 50 nanometer scales. The CQDs were found to be about 20 nanometer in size, which fits the definition of CQDs as particles smaller than 30 nanometers. This confirms that the synthesis was successful. Next, we have the X-ray diffraction analysis. The graph shows a broad peak between 20 and 30 degrees on the 2 theta scale, indicating the presence of graphitic carbon structures. However, the peak's broadness means that the material is mostly amorphous or semi-crystalline, not a well-ordered crystal. This suggests that the CQDs made from pomallopeels are mostly amorphous with some graphitic regions, which matches the TEM images showing mixed structures. This kind of structure is common for carbon quantum dots and help improve their optical and photoluminescent properties, making them useful in sensors and imaging. The amorphous nature also explains the high surface area seen in the FESM images, as these materials usually have irregular porous surfaces. Now, the last test for the CQD characterization was the wavelength dispersive X-ray fluorescence. The figure shows the heavy metal analysis of the CQDs. Potassium is the most common element with about 2.79%, followed by smaller amounts of magnesium, phosphorus, and calcium. There's also traces of sulfur and tiny traces of iron, chlorine, silicon, aluminum, manganese, and copper. The high potassium level makes sense since the source is rich in potassium, and the other elements come from natural minerals or biological material. Now we move on to the results of the experimentation. This experimentation lets me analyze how the different heavy metal reacts to different light, to which was used for my quantitative data using the NeoLog Logger sensors colorimetry analysis. The first figure shows how the CQDs affect green light absorption. Potassium lets a lot more green light through after treatment, meaning it absorbs less. Copper lets more green light pass, but calcium barely changes. And magnesium actually absorbs a little more green light after treatment. The second figure shows the effect on red light. Potassium slightly absorbs more red light after treatment, but copper and calcium both let much more red light through, so they absorb less. Magnesium, on the other hand, absorbs more red light after the treatment. Next, the first figure shows how the CQDs affect blue light. Potassium absorbs a bit more blue light after treatment, copper stays the same, calcium absorbs much less blue light, and magnesium absorbs slightly more blue light. The second figure shows orange light transmittance for different materials. Potassium and manganese barely change, meaning weak interaction with orange light. Magnesium and sodium show moderate decreases in transmittance, so they absorb a bit more orange light. Iron and calcium have big drops, absorbing a lot more orange light. Copper also shows a noticeable change, interacting with the orange light too. For this next analysis, it tests the light intensity change with different metals, making use of the Neolog Logger's light intensity sensor. For potassium, light drops a lot from 4 lux to 1 lux, meaning potassium blocks or absorbs a lot of UV light after treatment. Copper doesn't change the light at all, staying at 4 lux, so it doesn't affect the UV light much here. Calcium causes a big drop too, from 9 lux to 3 lux, showing it absorbs or scatters a lot of UV light. Magnesium causes a small drop, from 6 lux to 4 lux, meaning it absorbs some UV light. Now, the main reason for these effects is how these metal ions interact with the CQDs. They can grab electrons from the CQD surface, especially through covalent bonds, which causes the CQDs to lose fluorescence. For example, certain groups like thiol-insistent functionalized CQDs bind with heavy metals, reducing their brightness. We now move on to the data showing the varying concentration following the same process as before with the Neolog Logger sensors. This shows how calcium solutions at different strengths let light through before and after adding CQDs. Before treatment, higher calcium levels block more light, about 37.65 transmittance at 5% calcium and 80% at 0.5%. After adding CQDs, light passing through dropped a lot at all levels. For example, the 5% calcium solutions, transmittance went down to 9.22%. This means the stronger with higher calcium concentration, showing a stronger interaction between CQDs and calcium. Now, we have the figure that shows how the green light passes through solutions before and after treatment. At the highest concentration, the light passing through dropped quite a bit, meaning more green light was absorbed. At 4%, the change was small but noticeable. At 3% and 2%, the light mostly stayed the same, showing very little interaction. At 1% and 0.5%, there was only a tiny drop, so the effect was minimal. Overall, stronger effects happen at higher concentrations, while lower ones barely change the light. Here we have a figure that shows how copper solutions of different strengths let red light through before and after adding CQDs. Before adding the treatment, the stronger copper solutions absorbed more light. For example, only about 22% of red light passed through the 5% copper solution, while the weaker 0.5% solution let through over 83%. After treatment with the CQDs, more red light got through, especially in the stronger solutions, like the 5% one jumping up to about 40% transmittance. This means that the CQDs help reduce copper's light absorption, especially at higher concentrations. The next figure shows how orange light passes through iron solutions at different concentrations before and after adding CQDs. Before treatment, low concentration solutions let most of the light through, like 87% at 0.5% solution, while high concentrations block more light with only about 38% passing through the 5% solution. After adding CQDs, light passing through dropped a lot at all levels, especially at lower concentration. For example, the 0.5 solution's transmittance went down from 87% to about 47%. This means that the CQDs interact strongly with iron ions, making the solution absorb or scatter much more orange light, particularly when iron is less concentrated. Next, we have a figure that shows the before and after adding CQDs. Calcium solutions all had the same light intensity of 9 lux. After adding CQDs, the light intensity dropped to about 4 lux for more concentrations, except at the lowest, where it only dropped a bit to 4.6 lux. This means that the CQDs are absorbing or scattering the UV light pretty evenly across different calcium levels. This next figure shows how different potassium levels affect light intensity under UV light. After UV exposure, light intensity goes up at all concentrations, with bigger jumps at lower potassium levels. For example, at 5% potassium, intensity increases from 4.1 to 5 lux, but at 0.5%, it jumps from 7.5 to 5.8 lux. This means potassium changes how the material reacts to UV light, affecting its brightness and sensitivity. Lastly, for the results, this figure shows that after UV exposure, light intensity goes up a bit across all magnesium levels. For example, at 5% magnesium, it rises from 4 to 6 lux, and at 1% from 5.2 to 6.6 lux. This means magnesium affects how the material responds to UV light, but its impact is steady and moderate, not changing much between concentrations. After the results and discussion and the data collection, I have reached a conclusion wherein the study found that the carbon quantum dots made from pomelo peels were especially good at detecting copper, potassium, calcium, magnesium, and iron. These metals cause the strongest changes in the CQD's fluorescence, showing the CQD's ability to selectively sense them. Overall, this research highlights how versatile and effective CQDs can be for monitoring certain heavy metals, which is important for tracking pollutions and protecting the environment. Future work could look into using these CQDs in real sensing devices and applying them more widely for checking water quality, helping support sustainable practices and public health. These are the references that I have used in this PowerPoint presentation. And that ends my presentation. Thank you for listening, and I am ready to answer any queries.